Hey there, cats and kittens, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, and today I'm very excited to bring you issue number 58 in the series, Mr. Freeze. And this is one of my all-time absolute favorite villains ever. Definitely one of my favorite Batman villains, one of the most unique. Gosh, what a tragic story this guy has. Of course, probably made most famous on Batman the Animated Series, where he first appeared in the episode entitled Heart of Ice, which is, in my opinion, the greatest single episode of the animated series ever. Cannot be topped. It won an Emmy Award. And another cool fact about the Mr. Freeze character from that series, he was designed for that series by Mike Mignola, the guy that created Hellboy, so I thought that was kind of interesting too. Of course, he's also been realized in real action on the old 60s show with Adam West, and of course, most infamously by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the tragedy that was Batman and Robin. He also made an appearance in Batman Arkham City, the video game that was available on multiple platforms, and it's excellent. He is awesome in that as well. Yeah, great character. Very happy to bring this guy to you. Shocked it took this long. Of course, we'll cover the magazine first, which will tell us everything we need to know about Dr. Victor Freeze here, and then we'll take a look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this most excellent character. DC Comics Superhero Collection, issue number 58, Mr. Freeze. First up, the character section. And it's here that we're introduced to Victor Freeze, who we learn as a child had very distant parents who weren't really warm or loving towards him at all. And when they learned of his morbid fascination with freezing things in order to keep them pretty and young forever, they sent him off to a boarding school. After graduating from the boarding school, he went off to a university where he got his doctorate in cryogenics and met the love of his life, a woman named Nora. Victor fashioned himself a cryo-suit and an ice gun, as he called it, and went after Boyle and the GothCorp CEOs, and that's where he encountered Batman for the very first time. Batman tried to reason with Victor and talk him out of this vengeance plot of his, but Mr. Freeze wouldn't listen, and unfortunately in the melee, Nora was apparently killed. We find that Victor turns to a life of crime in order to finance his cryogenic experiments and his quest to cure his wife, teaming up with other Gotham villains like Two-Face. Victor's dealt with other heroes besides Batman, like the Man of Steel himself, Superman, who came to Gotham's aid when an earthquake rocked the town in an event known as No Man's Land. Mr. Freeze is a unique villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery, mainly because he can, unlike many other villains, be reasoned with. Like a time when he actually aided Batgirl Cassandra Cain, helping her break free from the clutches of the League of Assassins, while he escaped with his wife Nora, safely delivering her to a Lazarus pit. The Lazarus pit did manage to resurrect Nora, however, the chemicals in her body had a negative reaction to the chemicals in the pit, and drove her insane. Not long after, he was broken free by a gangster known as Black Mask, who implanted a chip in his head to keep him under control. In order to remove the chip from his head, he actually kidnapped Justice Leaguers Black Lightning and Owlman. We also get to see a time that Victor broke out of Arkham Asylum just so he could wander the streets outside of his cryosuit, when Gotham was being rocked by one of the worst blizzards in history. Next, we look at a couple of Victor's classic stories. First up, Batman, Mr. Freeze. And this is the definitive origin story for Mr. Freeze, as written by Paul Dini. And much the same way that Paul Dini created Harley Quinn and she was adapted into the comic book world, he wrote the origin story for Mr. Freeze on Batman the Animated Series, and was then asked by DC to do it in comic book format. And this is that story. It's everything you ever wanted to know about Mr. Freeze, where he came from, his motivations, his wife Nora, and his first encounter with the Batman. It's beautifully illustrated and definitely worth picking up. We also have Legends of the Dark Knight, Snow. And this is an updating and slight retelling of Mr. Freeze's origin story. It takes place during Batman's first year on the job, and we find him recruiting civilians to help him spy on people and feed him information, while at the same time Mr. Freeze is running loose across the city. It reveals that Mr. Freeze experiences hallucinations as a side effect of his transformation, believing that his wife Nora is actually speaking him and encouraging him to commit these crimes in order to help heal her. It's a really well-illustrated story and a great take on Mr. Freeze's character. Mr. Freeze's Friends and Foes features, of course, the dynamic duo Batman and Robin, as well as his wife, Nora. And finally, the original thinking section continues the DC timeline with Part 49, Manifest Destinies. In 1827, we find the time-displaced World War II fighter pilot group known as the Blackhawks encountering their heroic namesake, Chief Blackhawk. In 1848 in California, we meet a criminal organization known as El Ciento and learn that their leader is a man who has learned how to transport his soul from one body to another. Finally, in the late 1800s, we see the first appearance of a hero who calls himself simply Uncle Sam, taking on a villain known as El Diablo. And here we have Mr. Freeze, yet another absolutely fantastic figure in this series. I think Eaglemoss really knocked it out of the park with this one. It's a really fantastic figure. Borderline on being special edition, honestly. If he was a little bit bigger than he is here, I think he could easily pass for a special edition figure. And he's probably the most detailed villain in the regular line since the Scarecrow, I think. Everything on this figure is outstanding. All the details are great. The metallic paint on bits and pieces of his refrigeration suit and the icy blaster. And I mean, even down the barrel of the blaster there, you can see some detail down in the barrel there. It's really awesome. All the way around him, he's got all these dials and nodes and bolts and things all over his refrigeration suit. I love the dome on it too. It's really fantastically detailed. His backpack, as you can see, it's just gigantic. Love those blue nodes or lights or whatever they are on the suit. Really, really cool. The cable running from the backpack to his blaster. Everything is fantastic. The way the hands are holding the gun, his little dial on the front of the suit there, and all the way down to the boots, which are really fantastic. And I love the soft blue of his outfit also. And it's a great costume. It's, again, not any one costume in particular. It's sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of different costumes, but I mean, you know, instantly it's Mr. Freeze with the domed head and everything. Also, the face is a great sculpt, you can see. Really well done. Love the goggles, the red lenses in the goggles, and the dome is a plastic. It's really cool. And again, it kind of makes me wonder why they couldn't have done plastic goggles on like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle before, but I'm glad they did it here. It's pulled off really, really well. Just an excellent figure. And some more pictures and a little bit more about him here in just a moment. Mr. Freeze stands atop the classic DC logo, and the underside of his base features his name in multiple languages along with serial number. And so you can compare and get a sense of size and scale, here he is with Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. And a nice big group shot with all of Batman's rogues gallery that Eaglemoss has made so far. Mr. Freeze is absolutely outstanding. It's one of the best figures in this series. Leave it to a villain to be another outstanding figure. Probably the best regular issue figure since Scarecrow, honestly, as far as detail and level of detail and everything is concerned. He is one of the best in the line. Let's start with the good. Everything? Can I just say everything? Really? I love the sculpt. It's so intricately detailed. Love the paint job on this guy. Love the gun. Love the domed head. Love the big backpack. Gosh, starting with the feet, I guess, and I'll work up. Love the boots. The steel toes are an excellent touch. You can see the chrome paint they use on him is sort of dull. It's not so shiny. Love the blue of the pants and the darker blue on the boots, and I love how the pants are sort of baggy. His whole suit is sort of baggy looking. It reminds me of like a hazmat suit that you would see in like a zombie movie or something like that. So it looks like he kind of took one of those suits and adapted it to be this fridge suit of his. The gun is awesome. Freeze ray, amazing. So many details on it. Little switches and gizmos, and I love the hand on the trigger and the other one under the barrel of the gun there. Love the detail on the barrel itself and the scope and everything. Even inside the barrel you can see it has several sort of layers to it, and there's a slightly different sort of shade. I think it's almost a deep blue when you really look at it in the center of that barrel, like it's ready to fire or charging up possibly. Really nice little detail. I love the chest plate as well. You can see every rivet is detailed and raised up off the rest of that chest plate. The shoulder pads are awesome. The backpack is big and amazing and wonderfully detailed. I love the blue paint they used on it. It's sort of got a pearlescence to it, so it looks like it's possibly filled with some sort of cryogenic chemical or something, that's what he fires through the gun. And the lead wire they use for the cable that goes from the backpack to the blaster is also a really great touch. I love how it's a separate piece and sort of hanging off in a way. The gauge on the center of his belt is fantastic, showing that his suit is at nominal temperature, I would assume, and the little red rivets are great. And then the head sculpt and the dome, fantastic. It's the only way you could have done this figure. If he didn't have a dome on his head, I mean, you still could have pulled it off, I suppose, but having this clear plastic is really nice, and the head mold underneath, the head sculpt underneath is also fantastic. I love the goggles. They have a nice deep red in the center of them, the lenses. The one goggle is slightly different than the other, which I think is fantastic. He wears that sort of thing all the time in the comic books, and again, the translucent plastic is a great touch. It makes me wish they had done this with some previous figures in the line, but yeah, fantastic. Everything about this one is great. the bad. I mean, minor paint bleeding, maybe, here and there, but that just shows it's hand-painted as far as I'm concerned. My only nitpick that I'll have, and it's just a nitpick, a criticism, something I would have done in hindsight, I would have liked a little bit of a frostiness on the clear plastic. I think that would have been a nice touch. Just a slight bit of frost. But, again, probably harder to do than I think. The Ugly. The thing you gotta watch out for the most on this figure, of course, is the cable that runs from his backpack to the blaster. It's the most fragile thing on the figure. If he falls, that probably would be the thing to break. The clear plastic dome is actually surprisingly resilient, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Overall, loved this figure, if you couldn't tell. He's really fantastic. Highly recommend picking him up. He completes the Batman Rogues Gallery for me as far as I'm concerned. If they stopped here, I would be totally fine with that. He rounds it out for me. He's a classic villain. He's been around forever. He's one of the best as far as I'm concerned, and this figure does him so much justice. He's fantastic. If you're a Batman fan, highly recommend picking this guy up, and he's a very great addition to the line, the menacing Mr. Freeze. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I hope you stay tuned real quick for a quick teaser trailer of the next issue in the line, issue number 59. Another extremely obscure hero. He's been around for a while. Be interested to see if anyone knows who this guy is, but it's a great, really great figure, a very unique figure in the line, so please stay tuned for that quick teaser. As always, I am your host, the Monkey Boy, aka Jay to his friends. Thanks very much for watching.